Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Nutritional Coaching Webinar with Oliver Rogers. Before we dive in, for those of you who might be new to Fitbudd, allow me to give you a brief introduction. Fitbudd is a platform empowering fitness professionals to create their own branded websites and apps. We are here to help you build your fitness business from the ground up. For more details, you can check out the link that we've shared in the chat. Moving on, let me introduce you all to Oliver Rogers, our esteemed host today. He's a personal trainer, nutritionist, and mental health coach based out of United Kingdom. With over a decade of experience in the fitness industry, Oliver's expertise spans a successful multi-gym ownership and a profound understanding of Fitbudd. And now, without further delay, I'm thrilled to hand the virtual stage over to Oliver.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Ollie, and I've been using Fitbudd for many years now. And so what I want to help you guys to understand is how to effectively use Fitbudd on the nutritional side to maximize your clients' results, to encourage the use of the app, which in turn also gives additional value to them and betters your coaching experience. So I'm going to go through some specific topics today and then cover off strategies that's going to be beneficial to you to help implement the tools from Fitbudd to enable you to better your client experience and the services that you offer. Now, you are all probably starting to become familiar with the volume of different tools that come with Fitbudd. So we're going to break them down so you get a base understanding if you haven't already had a play with Fitbudd. Understand how to create and build out nutrition plans, how you're going to assign that to a client, but more importantly, the benefits of those plans and how you're going to execute that as a service. So what I want to do is there's been a presentation that's been created, which I'm going to talk through to give you a base structure. Just to clarify, do you want me to show the presentation on my screen or are you going to show it on yours?
You can share your screen, Oliver, no problem. If you want, I can do that too.
That's okay. Let me just bear with me, make sure I get the right document up. Too many tabs.
Let me just do it.
Okay. Oh, I've got it.
Is it visible?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you got it up too. Okay, so let's break down understanding nutritional coaching and implementation. So there are some additional features that Fitbudd have that are amazing, but are not going to be relevant to the talk that I'm going to go through. But just for your awareness, if you're not already aware of these tools, I want you to be aware of them because you might find them helpful for your coaching style and gives you value to your client if you implement these. But again, there are a lot of tools. You've got to make sure the tools are relevant for your coaching style. One of those features is recipes, being able to create your own personalized custom recipes that your clients can get access to through the app, and you can create a step-by-step guide, assign pictures or videos to give them a full tutorial on how to create that recipe. Secondly is supplementation. The supplementation works very similar to the meal plans that we're going to come across, where you can create bespoke individualized supplement plans, or you can create a generified one that you would assign to your clients. The great part of the supplement plan is you can add your own URL or hyperlinks to direct products. So if there's specific products you recommend, or you might even have an affiliate code link, your members can then go and purchase the exact product you either recommend, or if you've got an affiliate link, so to make sure that you're getting that additional revenue stream from those affiliate links. That's if you have that set up. And the last one is the shopping list. At the very end of what I'm going to guide you through today, from the client point of view, if you are doing food-based meal plans, you can then automatically have a shopping list based on all of the foods that you assign to them. That makes it really super easy for your client to know what they need when going shopping. These are three really great features, but they're not something I'm going to cover off. So if you have additional specific questions about these, you can speak to the Fitbudd team afterwards. Today, I want to go through key features with you. First of all, we need to understand how Fitbudd nutrition works. So we're going to go and start off with how to add a food item. If you have not had a play with trying to add a food item, you will benefit from just spending 5 minutes trying to create a food item of your own. What is a food item? It's any individual item. A banana would be a food item. Chicken thighs might be a food item. Anything that's an individual food item would be a food item. When you create a food item, you have the choice to assign the calories and macros. So the protein, carbs, and fats, which will then pre-calculate it into the total amount of calories. When you do this, you have two options. You have the serving size. Now, let's say for argument's sake, I wanted to create a food item that was this yogurt. I might then put the serving size of what this yogurt is. However, we do know that often food items, serving sizes are not relevant to the actual size that someone might consume. So for what I do when I add food items in, I always do it based on 100 grams. And the reason for this is that means when someone inputs that food item when they're using the app, they would select the amount of grams or milliliters that they've actually had as a serving. As I've inputted it as per 100 grams, and let's say, for example, this is 200 grams, it would then automatically calculate that portion size rather than them saying ×2 of this. So you have the choice when you're creating a food item, just think about that in mind. Are you creating it based specifically of the food item serving size, or are you going to do it based on per 100 grams or 100 mils? When you add a food item, you can give it two names. You have the reference name, which is your name in your system. Then you have what the display name is. The display name is what your members see. Now, if you have multiple options of similar food items, you might want to give yourself your own reference name to make it easier for you to search. But that might not be relevant for the end user. So you might then change what the display name is to be more simpler for that end user. Once you've added a food item, if we go to the next slide for me, please. Sorry, that's when adding food items, you have the choice to manually input it like I explained previously, or you can search it through the vast database that Fitbudd provides. When you search an item through the food database, it's always worthwhile checking the macros. Don't just instantly save it to your profile. Sometimes, depending on which country you come from, the specifics of how that item is either grown or the total ingredients might vary country to country. So for that reason, just double check, are you happy with the protein, carbs, and fats? If not, you can manually adjust it. When you then add it to your library, that will be forever on your library the way you've inputted it. We go to the next slide. We're going to look at food-based meal plans. So you have two different types of food meal plans, and we're going to go through both of those options with you. Food-based meal plans and macro-based meal plans. So starting off with food-based meal plans. If you wish to create a meal plan that is specific to set foods you want your clients to eat, for example, breakfast, I want my client to have 50 grams of oats, 30 grams of whey protein, and 200 milliliters of almond milk. You could then search, select those food items, and add that to their meal plan. You could do exactly the same for lunch, the exact same for dinner, snacks, and that way they have a food-specific meal plan. You can also give it timings. Timings being, I want you to have this roughly at 8 a.m., midday, snack at 2 p.m., your dinner at 6 p.m., for example. So you can also add time specifics to your meal plan. Now, when creating food-specific meal plans, you can also add alternatives. So let's say they might not have that food item or they're not feeling it that day. You can also recommend swaps. When you recommend a swap, it makes it really easy when they're looking at their meal plan from their end to swap those items in or out interchangeably based on what their preferences are. So rather than having a client going to you, I'm actually really bored of having a porridge every morning, is there any other options I could swap it out for? You might say, instead of oats, let's have some more fruit. Let's have some fruit. So you have a swap item that might be, for example, fruit. Then with those food-based meal plans, we will come to how you assign that to that client if you have that pre-created or individually created it for each client. The other meal plan that we talked about, and this is my personal preference and favorite, is where it's a macro-based meal plan. For anyone not sure what macro-based basically means, our macros are protein, carbs, and fats. So what you're doing is you're deciding what percentage of protein, carbs, and fats you are going to assign them based on their total calorie allowance. The reason why I love this approach, because it gives you more of a flexible dieting approach that the clients can choose whatever food items that they might want to consume, but it gives them a target of calories and macros for them to stay within. So within my personal coaching, I always assign someone a calorie goal and a protein goal. For my style of training, I don't really care about the percentage of carbs or fat they're having. I want to make sure that they're hitting their calorie target as well as their protein target. We're going to move on a little bit later into trends, and I'm going to explain why it's much more easier for me to follow a macro-based meal plan opposed to a food-based meal plan. But there are benefits to both. With the macro-based meal plans, you can also choose how many times a day you want them to potentially eat. So within that macro-based meal plan, I might say that I want the majority of their calories in the earlier part of the day. So let's say someone's on 1,500 calories a day. I might say I want their breakfast to be 500 calories, their lunch to be 400 calories, their dinner to be 350 calories. And if I've done my quick maths right, that leaves me with 250 calories spare, which I might give them 2 additional snacks. So then they can have target ranges of how many calories they should be consuming roughly per meal. The additional part of when you give, sorry, just go back one slide. The additional part of when you give that calorie and macro-based meal plan is that you will see on their overview page, it will give you a quick overview, as you can see in the image here, of what those calories are and what their macro targets are as well. This works really well with trends, being able to actually understand and reflect how consistent is your client, your member being. Are they actually logging their nutrition? Are they staying within their calorie target? And for me, it'd be, are they hitting their protein target? On the trend side of things, I can see a score out of 100% if they're doing that. Now, let's say they're below 80% on that. There's something they're not doing right their end. They're either not logging their nutrition, or what they're logging isn't in line with my plan that I assigned them. So I can go in, check their schedule to see, okay, have they actually been filling out their nutrition? If they haven't, my coaching is now going to go directly to trying to support them on why they're not tracking. If they are tracking and they're still not hitting their calorie target, or they're going over it, then I might look more detail about the type of food that they're consuming to see actually how do we then change what food options they're choosing to reduce that calorie consumption down. But that makes it really easy to see on your client's overview page. This is important for scalability. If you get to the point where you are having 30, 50, even 100 plus active users on the app, you don't want to spend a lot of time checking every single person's food log. You want to be able to see an overview of how consistent they're being, and from a glance, how accurate are they actually sticking to your plan. So being able to go to their overview and go, right, there should be on 1,620 calories, check their trends. I will be able to see a percentage of how accurate they are sticking to that. Let's say they log their food every single day and they were near enough perfect with their food. It's going to give me a score like 98%. I can then go and congratulate that client on how amazing that they're doing with being consistent. And as a byproduct, most likely when I check their progress, I will probably see their weight decreasing. If we go to the next slide for me, please. Now, you might say you like the idea of more automation. Now, when you create a meal schedule, this is based on most likely an individual case-based scenario where you might create a meal specific plan, but you might give them additional food on high intensity training days, and their rest days, you might choose that you're going to reduce their calories down. So the likelihood is, rather than creating multiple plans and then spending a lot of time trying to individually schedule that, you might create a set meal schedule where you then, rather than assign the individual meal days to them, you can assign it to a schedule and just assign that schedule straight to that client. This is great for people that run challenges, for example, like a 12-week shred challenge, where you are not creating complete bespoke customization for each client. You want to give them generalized set meal plans, but you might have high and low day calories, for example. You can then create those plans within a schedule, and then they be assigned to those members. Not only that, you can start implementing automation scheduling. So depending on your onboarding questions and how you set up your memberships, when they answer their onboarding questions, it can then trigger and automatically assign schedules. That means it's automatically assigned their nutrition plans to them based on the answers that they've given on their onboarding questions. So rather than having to go back and forth with questions going, do you have any nutritional requirements? Do you have any medical conditions such as PCOS, autoimmune disorders, diabetes, whatever it might be? You can ask these questions within your onboarding and set rules and triggers that, depending on the answers they choose, it's going to assign that set meal plan or meal schedule. That way, for the end user, they're going to perceive it as completely customized to their needs, which in turn it is, but you've created a level of automation behind the scenes to automate that process. Now, if you're new to Fitbudd, this takes a little bit more steps to get used to. So don't think about trying to implement automation straight away unless you've learned how to create food items, create meal plans, and start assigning them to members. If you are familiar with the basics, creating food items, creating a meal plan, and assigning that to members, then I would then look at how you might automate features to speed up your workflow. But if you try and implement automation from day one, you are likely probably going to overwhelm and confuse yourself and then get more questions from your clients because your processes may not be perfectly synced. So then they might not get the right plan assigned to them. So you've got to start with making sure you're familiar with the Fitbudd features. Can you create a meal plan? Can you assign that meal plan? What does that meal plan look like to the end user? Have you assigned it to yourself, logged into the app and seen how it looks? If you have, then you can start thinking biggest picture on how to automate your meal plans and utilizing the scheduling feature to make your life easier to do so. When it comes to automations, this is created through when you create a membership. You'll see the picture on the screen. Automatically, when you go to create a membership, a service, it will have the details of that membership, whether it's a free plan, a one-off payment, a subscription service, how much you're going to charge, the details of the plan, etc. But to one button to the right of details, you'll see automations. And this is where you can start using triggers, rules to your onboarding questions. So you might have multiple pre-made meal plans. Let's say I've created 3 male meal plans and 3 female meal plans. Meal plan 1 on each of them is at maintenance calories for purely performance, where I'm trying to drive a high protein based diet, but I want them to be at maintenance calories. So it's not going to affect their weight. They're not going to gain weight. They're not going to lose weight, but I've got a male and a female. I might then have a general calorie deficit where I apply someone into a smaller deficit based on depending on their physical activity level. So let's say I might have a 250 or up to a 500 calorie deficit for male and female. And then I might have a third plan, which is a more of a deficit, more of a drastic based measure for those that might be more towards morbidly obese, that can have the benefit of being in a higher deficit. Let's say it's a 750 calorie deficit. But I need to make sure it's still relevant based on their weight, age, height, and obviously gender. So I could design the questions to be triggered, obviously, if they're male, their physical activity level. So it could be based off their BMR or TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. And then what I want the automation to do, and it might do subtract 500 calories from that base meal plan. So the meal plan it assigns them is that direct meal plan that I would assign to them. But instead of me having to read their onboarding questions, then go manually in and assign the meal plan that I want to give them, based off the questions that they ask during their onboarding, it's automatically assigned that meal plan that I wanted to do to them. Now, obviously, you want to make sure your processes are in place, that when they ask the relevant questions, it's triggered the right meal plan. If you don't put good quality time into thinking about that process and try and rush automations, there is a strong chance you have a broken link somewhere and it won't automate the way you want it to do. The automated feature is absolutely amazing, but you've got to make sure you understand the triggers and the process. So if you are brand new to Fitbudd, I would not look at implementing automations at this level until you familiarize yourself with creating a meal plan and having a play with yourself. Now, how this potentially works with your coaching style and service. It's fundamentally great to have all these tools and resources available to you based on your coaching style and the service that you want to offer. And Fitbudd have an amazing array of different features you can use. And all of the features are amazing, providing your clients use them. So with your type of clients, you've got to think what's relevant to your individual audience. I have two very different styles of clients. For example, I have lorry drivers who are very sedentary. They spend 8 to 12 hours a day just driving around, often in unsocial hours, and they often are grabbing food on the go. So what they like to do is just use the barcode scanner, for example, and scan the food straight into the app. Where I have other clients that are, for example, premenopausal or postmenopausal, perimenopausal or postmenopausal, who have a little bit more time on their hands that maybe like to cook for a family. So depending on the meal plan that I'm going to assign to them, I got to think about their lifestyle on what's actually effective and useful for their end user. Now, for me, my coaching, I can only aid and support them if they've physically logged and tracked what they're eating. If they're not logging into the app and they're not tracking, it makes it very hard for our end to actually see what they're doing. So from our coaching technique, we want to make sure we're asking the right questions to stimulate the right response. And it sounds simple. You would assume you just ask open-ended questions. But if I contacted a client and said, "Hey, Susan, how are you getting on with your nutrition?" Their response could be, "Yeah, good. It could be better." It's not giving me a tangible outcome. Whereas if I said, "Hey, Susan, I can see you've only logged twice this week with your nutrition. That means you've got a trend score of only 40%. I want you to make sure you're getting this to at least 80% so we can maximize your results and I can actually see what you're inputting." What gets tracked gets measured, and it's the tangibles of seeing what those members are inputting helps you with your coaching and give a better value of service, and thus they end up getting better results. You can utilize many different tools within your nutritional features within Fitbudd, but think specifically how you would like to offer your services and how you're going to follow up on that to make sure your members are executing and utilizing the features that you've assigned to them. Now, let's say I give my member a supplement plan and I'm raving about supplements to them. And then I'm fixated on contacting them saying, are you taking your supplements? When in turn, the better emphasis would have been actually to check, are they actually logging their food and getting the basics right with their food? If they were getting everything right with their food, I might then consider those additionals looking at their supplementation. But you've got to think what is relevant for your client, and that's going to take them to that next step. I like to check in with my members weekly. Now, I don't do video messages. I have question techniques that I typically ask my questioners to check in with them. I also have staff, unfortunately, that my staff check in with majority of the clients on a daily basis, just asking a few questions, just to make sure there's interaction going on regularly with each member. That way, if they haven't used the app for a few days, we can get onto them quickly to make sure that they're back on the app and doing what they need to do. If we're only checking in once a week, and let's say a whole week has gone by and they haven't logged into the app, now I'm just chasing them up to get them to log back in. Whereas if we've already touched base with them because they haven't logged in for 2 days, encourage them to log into the app, use the features, make sure they're logging their food. Then our coaching is then to help them better their nutritional needs, making our service a lot more valuable and personable. So when you are doing your coaching for your clients, you want to make sure you are familiar with the app. You know the type of service that you're offering, that you have the features in place to offer that service to the clients. And the real crucial one is your coaching technique to follow up on those clients to make sure they're implementing those nutritional needs. When you've created a meal plan to a client, it's obviously important to know how to assign that to a meal plan. So when you go to your client and you select schedule, your schedule is where you assign your workouts, your nutrition. There's other features such as water intake, steps being a physical activity level, all of these things you can implement. But the nutrition's always on the top right-hand side. And when you select single on nutrition, you are selecting a single plan. So let's say for me, I give someone a macro-based meal plan based on 1,800 calories. I would select single plan, select that plan, 1,800 calories, and assign. If you're doing a food-specific meal plan, you might have different foods for different days. For example, during their working day, between Monday and Friday, you might have a quick, convenient breakfast option. Where on the weekend, they have a little bit more time and they want to cook a more bigger breakfast, you might have a second meal plan that you assign to them on the weekend. You can then do that per day basis. So you select the meal plan based on per day. Have a play with creating food items, have a play with creating different meal plans, and have a play with assigning that to a client on a schedule. That client, I would suggest, be yourself. So if you haven't already added yourself to the app, add yourself as a client, assign those food items to yourself. So then when you open up your app, you are then seeing it from a client's point of view. It makes you more familiar with the app. It makes you a lot more competent when it comes to answering questions to clients, because the last thing you want to do is a client asks you a question about how to do something on the app and you have no idea. But if you physically have used the app yourself, it is very straightforward and quite self-explanatory, providing you use it. So you would assign your meal plan to your client. After that, you would need to make sure your clients are obviously logging their meals and tracking their nutrition. This is very self-explanatory for most clients. If you have a client that's a bit of a technophobe and not really used to using a phone, haven't used any sort of nutritional tracker in the past, they're going to probably find it a little bit more difficult compared to someone that's already used a similar app in the past. Now, fortunately with Fitbudd, the reason why I absolutely love it is because it's so client user friendly that it is pretty self-explanatory, that most people get on with it and be able to work it out themselves, where they would add a food item, search it. Now, your clients will have two options. You have recommended and all. Recommended is your food database. So all food items you have added to your food database is going to be under recommended. So for me, we've created our own, we've done quite a few hundred different food items, because that way we've checked the macros on each of those food items to be 100% accurate. So my clients know that if they choose a recommended item, it's going to be 100% perfect macro-wise. But people might buy all sorts of random food and just want to be able to input that food item, or they might be eating out at a restaurant. And obviously it's impossible for you to manually input all of the foods in the world. And this is where the all food database comes into play. If your client can't find the food item under recommended, they can obviously check all foods. Now, for me, I'm based in the UK. I have clients all around the world, being Australia, Hong Kong, India. And typically the all food database has a little bit more of a preference towards Americans. So if it's American, it's quite easy. They recognize the food items on there. However, that's not always the case. Someone from India isn't going to have the same supermarkets as the supermarkets in America. So that's why we built out our recommended foods, just to help it make it more seamless for our members. But that's not to say that the food items are there in the all database. There is just the potential of a little bit of human error. And I give you an example. I remember one client searched for sourdough bread and they selected one serving, and that one serving showed us 2,000 calories. And it's because that one serving was based on the whole bread, not a slice. When in fact, when they had one slice, it was like 140 calories. The client didn't know the difference. So they've suddenly worried that they've consumed 2,000 calories. When we checked their schedule, we were like, no, it's just the food item. When and if anything like that happens, we typically then manually just create that food item onto our recommended. Again, you do that if you remember from the start of the webinar, where you go to my food, you go to foods, add food, you can search the database. Let's say I would say sourdough bread. I would find that item. I could either use the image that's already recommended there, or add my own image in, and then I would change the macros based on what I want as a serving size. Now you then have the option, if it's not a macro based meal plan, if it's a meal or a food meal plan, when they select meal plan, it will show all of the foods they've recommended. So let's say we go back to my scenario where it's, I don't know, 50 grams oats, 30 grams whey protein, and 200 mils of almond milk. If I've assigned that to them as a meal plan, they would select meal plan. Those portions and items would automatically be there, and it's like a little tick. They go tick, 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 add. So it makes it really quick and convenient for people that are on meal plan specific meals. If you've created a food item that has a recipe attached to it, let's say I was going to do protein pancakes and I created a recipe on how to create those protein pancakes with specific ingredients, just like on meal plan, you will have that recipe option there where the client would select it. They can either then watch the video you might have assigned for the recipe or read the bullet points. And again, they can just press the tick button, and those items that you've inputted would automatically be added to their meal plan. The same for supplements. Rather than meal plan, you'll see a link that says supplements. Now, one of the quickest and best features of the nutritional tracker that I would really recommend you encourage your clients to use, which is the barcode scanner. If they're having any level of confusion trying to find a food item, and for whatever reason they can't find the food item on either database, just get them to scan the barcode. Now, the barcode scanner is like, it feels infinite. I've gone into a supplement shop and just scanned random items, and they all popped up. So the barcode scanner is one of the best features you can use. So for your members to use that, they just press add, and at the very top right-hand corner, which I think the next slide will show you. top right-hand corner, you'll see the barcode. It loads up. They hover it over the barcode, and instantly they'll see it pop up. They can then select the serving size that they're going to have and press add, and it will automatically add that to their today's food. So if you haven't had a play with a barcode scanner, definitely use it, because it's been a real lifesaver for my clients, especially for international clients where they're struggling to search the food items, or different people around the world, they might phrase names slightly differently, and it just avoids that headache. They can just scan the barcode and boom, the item pops up. So make sure, if you haven't already had a play, utilize that barcode scanner. Now, one of the main things I really wanted to cover off with you guys is the strategy around utilizing trends and compliance. You might put a lot of time and effort in trying to create the best ideal meal plan for your clients. And it might well be the best meal plan they've ever had, but it's only applicable if they physically utilize it, if they use it. And that's going to come from your coaching accountability, making sure that they're encouraged to use it. And this is where trends and compliance come into place. You can see very quickly in an overview, by going to their profile, selecting trends, how consistent they've been with the plan that you've assigned to them. It's the same for the workouts. It's the same if you've given them a water or a step goal. But when you look at nutrition, you'll see the compliance score. Now, for me, if they're anything over 80%, I'm thinking they're doing good. For any reason, if they're below 80%, I now need to check why. So for this example, in this image, I can see that they are definitely way below their calorie target, okay, but they're not hitting their protein. So for me, I would then be trying to look at what solutions I can offer that client, where I'd be like, look, you're doing really amazing, staying within your calorie target. You have more calories to play with. I want you to really work on bumping up your protein. Here are 4 items that I think would be beneficial to you to get that protein up. A protein yogurt, a pack of king prawns, a protein shake, or it could be a snack on edamame beans, for example. That way, when I next check in with them, I want to see, has that compliance increased? Has it gone from 65% to maybe 71%? At which point, again, I'm going to check and look for a result for them. You can then select nutrition and see an overview of their whole week. How many calories have they hit per day? You can also then select that per protein base. So I can see where they might have come short. Now, let's say they ended up just missing a day, so that they might have a compliance score of 78%. I select their progress graph, and I see that they've just not inputted for one day. That they haven't logged for one day is going to bring their result down. So then I might be, actually, they've done 6 days of being amazing. They've tracked everything. They've hit their goals. The only thing they forgot to do is they missed 1 day of tracking. So from an overview glance, I can now just message them saying, you've done really well with your nutritional tracking this week. I'm really pleased you hit your protein target. There was 1 day that you missed tracking. Why was this? And for next week, let's work on X, Y, and Z. That way, I don't have to go into every single food log and check every single food item that they've had that week. I can just see the overview of where they're at. So when it comes to trends and compliance, make this a consistent habit of, this is what you're going to be checking on a daily, weekly base, because then you're going to use this data to give evidence and accountability to your members. This way, they actually look forward to using the app and collecting that data. Because if you have someone that might only input their food once a week, you don't know what they might be actually eating, what barriers they're coming across. And then the challenge is, if you're coming up to, like, say, a renewal with them, they might have the perception that they're not really getting the most from their coaching. And that's purely down to them not inputting their food and utilizing your service. So the higher you get the compliance score, I guarantee the higher your retention rate will be with your clients. And this is the importance of when we're looking at strategies around nutrition. It's great that you might be able to create the most perfect nutritional plan for them, but are they sticking to it? What is their compliance score? have you got their compliance score consistently? For me, I set the bar high, 80%. You might say 70%, 60%. You can gauge that based off your own metrics. I'm just gone to the questions just to quickly check, as I've missed 2 questions. How do you change based on type of plan? Can you give an example of the price for this? Okay. How do you charge, sorry, based on the type of plan? Okay, so you've got to think this is individualized to each coach. There is no one perfect answer for this because it all depends on your expertise, the type of service that you're offering, and the amount of time that you pledge to your service. Now, for me, we offer a monthly plan, a 12-weekly plan, and an annual plan. And within that, they get their workouts and nutritional plans. Does not matter which membership they choose. I base my pricing off the amount of physical time it takes up. So think about what you're offering in your plan. How much time does it take up? And you do not have to offer the world. Just because other coaches are advertising that they do X, Y, and Z, make it simple for yourself. And then when you maybe see some challenges that your clientele are going through, you might naturally start giving more value, more services, at which point you might naturally want to start charging more for. So to give you a base price point, when I first started remote coaching, I used to charge £10 a week, which I think is equivalent to about $12 per week. Now it's basically at least £90 a month that I would charge. Some of it goes way beyond that, but you've got to know your service, your barrier of entry on what you're charging. Set your price too high and you won't hold retention. Set your price too low and then you'll be resentful on the amount of time it takes up of yours. Thank you for your questions. Oliver will pick your questions at the end. Oh, perfect. If anyone has any additional questions, please input them into the chat and I'll answer them right away. Your questions can either be about specific features within the app. Your questions could be specific coaching nutritional questions that you might have for types of clientele or even a client that you have in mind right now. If you're new to Fitbudd and you're trying to work out your processes on how you're going to utilize Fitbudd for your services, ask those questions away. Is creating and assigning meal plans is legal and within the scope of practice for PTs in the UK? Great question. As far as I'm concerned, you have to be a registered dietitian or nutritionist. How far PTs can go with nutrition? Great question. So the word nutrition is not a registered or recognized protected qualification. So in theory, anyone in the world can call themselves a nutritionist. Now, dietitian is different because that's a legally protected registered qualification. So although you can get qualified as a nutritionist, dietitian is protected. So it means to be a dietitian, you would have had to go to university, done a dietitian qualification, passed it, and then have a registered board that ensures you as a registered dietitian. Dietitians within the UK are typically protected under NHS. So usually if someone's dietitian, they are under some sort of body of NHS. So you will very rarely ever find a private practitioner dietitian. They're always within the NHS sector. When it comes to nutrition, in theory, anyone can call themselves a nutritionist. But the difference is you can't tell someone what to do, you can advise them. So it's just the use of your language. So I might say, hey, Jess, I advise you to try and aim to stick to 1,800 calories on average a day and a protein target of 120 grams a day. What I do not say is you must. And that is simply the different denominator between the type, what you can offer to your clients. You're advising them, you're not dictating or telling them. A doctor, for example, could dictate and tell. You would advise them. You can get certain qualifications that will give you a registration in nutrition. So, for example, I have a MAC nutrition qualification, which gives me insurance and a registered body, which registers me as a nutritionist. But technically, anyone could call themselves a nutritionist. So why is there a certification nutrition coaching? I hope that answers it. So it's to do with the actual insurance and getting a registered body to acknowledge your ability. So typically, post-university grad, you could get insurance. there is only one other course that I'm actually physically aware of that will give you a certificate registration that gets insurance, and that is MNU Mac Nutrition. I know in the US you can get certified to be a nutritional coach where you can't prescribe that advice exactly the same. You can advise, but you can't prescribe. So same with supplementation. I might say to someone, I recommend you take 2,000 IUs a day. I can't say you should take 2,000 IUs a day. It's just the use of your language, which actually helps protect you. You're just advising. This is my advice. It's basically the same as your own personal opinion, but you can't dictate. Is there a way to remove clients from the app? I have some people who have not used the app at all. If I am not mistaken, there is a cap on free clients using the app until, great question. I think I can answer this, but the Fitbudd team might just confirm this. Only active clients are you getting charged for. So realistically, if they're not in a current subscription, they shouldn't be active. For any reason, if you've set them up wrong and they are active, go to the top right-hand corner of their profile and disable them. This will deactivate them. They will still be on the system as old clients, but you won't be then charged as an active client. So it's only active users would you be getting charged on. If I'm wrong on that, the Fitbudd team can confirm that.
Yes, that's correct, Oliver.
Thank you.
Also received a question from Gina as well. She has asked, I added my own supplement to the supplement list. Now I want to assign to a client, but will not show up when I go to this. How do I go about this?
Why it doesn't show, I'm unsure, because it definitely should. I would suggest if you're not sure of something, screenshot it and just ping it over to the chat to Fitbudd, and they will be able to answer where you're either going wrong, where you may have not saved or assigned it correctly, or for any reason, if there's a bug, they'll be able to fix it therein. Is there, let me go down. Thanks for your inspiration. See you soon. Lovely. I added my own, oh, yeah, that's one. Yeah, I got it. Where can I find the recording? I jumped on this kind of Fitbudd team can answer that. Lovely. We've got any other?
You the recording. So you can check your email. After the webinar ends, we'll send a replay email to everyone who has registered for the webinar. So if you registered, then we'll send you the email. Don't worry.
To help the listeners that have tuned in, if you have specific nutritional questions, if you're not sure on your service on how you might put that as a package and offer it to your clients, anyone is more than welcome to message me directly. I'm always happy to help and support anyone in any way that I can. So if you have a specific nutritional question or just a strategy that you need help with adding that to your services, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I'll always happy to help anyone in any way I can. I think that would be the end of the questions, unless anyone else has the last minute ones.
I think Shruti has also, if you can see the chat, there's also...
Sorry, it's just refreshed itself. Got it. Where can I... Not sure if you already covered this part and I missed it, so apologies. I wanted to know how to go by if you are planning to collaborate with a meal plan company. Oh. I'm doing a tech work. What's your email? If you would like my email, you're welcome to reach out to me on my email, which is Oli, O-L-I, @rediscipline.com. Oli. OLI@rediscipline.com. I don't think I've missed any questions. I think I've covered everyone.
Yes, I think we've covered everyone. Thank you all for being a part of today's session, and a big shout out to our fantastic host, Oliver. I trust you all found the webinar illuminating and took away some valuable insights. Until we meet again, remember to stay curious and keep evolving. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.